Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I am here with Dr. Debbie. We are going to talk about vertical heterophoria and its connection to ADHD and answer all the questions that you wanted to know about this eye condition we're all learning more about. Dr. Debbie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Dr. Debbie Feinberg. I'm a neurovisual optometrist practicing in Michigan, and I am doing this work to help patients with all these many symptoms that we'll describe today since really 1995.
That's amazing. And how did you get into the work?
My brother-in-law is an ear, nose, and throat doctor, and it's called the brother-in-law story, where he was holding up a loose prism in front of one of his eyes when we were double dating, and my husband and his soon-to-be wife in the back seat. I said, "Wow, where'd you get that prism from?" He was holding up that prism. He said, "In medical school, I was struggling, and I went to the chief of ophthalmology. He gave it to me and said it might help me with my eye strain." I said, "Well, did it help?" He said, "Not really." So I asked him if he wouldn't mind coming for an eye exam, and he did. And I discovered that he was actually off on the vertical plane, and he was an eyeglass wearer. So I just had to put the prism to synchronize his eyes and the images into the glasses. And he was better and didn't know how much better, but he said, "I'm better." And then about 10 years later, he said, "I need to send you my dizzy patients." I said, "Why?" He says, "You're going to help them." I said, "How?" He said, "The way you helped me." I said, "Yeah, but I've been doing that for 10 years now." He said, "Yes, I started sending people to other eye doctors, thinking I can't send them to my sister in law." And he said, "And I realized they didn't know what you were doing." So he began to send me a parade of all these dizzy and off balance patients. And it was scary to me because I said, "I don't know dizzy." But I learned pretty quickly that when the eyes are not working as a team, we can feel off, we can feel nauseous, so there was this whole host of symptoms: headache, dizziness, nausea, imbalance with walking, that just started to melt away as I corrected their eye misalignment.
That's incredible. Okay, so we talk about how the prism's corrected. What is a prism and how does it help to correct the vision?
Sure. So most of us assume that our eyes are working together as a team, but very often in these patients, they're really not. One eye might be seeing things a little higher than the other, and they're constantly working to bring them together. And that might be that they're going to tilt their head to line up the images, and then their neck might bother them, or they're
Yes.
going to see dizzy as their eyes try to work it together. But ultimately, I'm able to measure small units of misalignment. And when I can put a trial frame on them with a little bit of prism, they can actually feel the difference pretty soon after I've applied the prism. So prism just bends light, it moves the images, and it helps the eyes see as a team. And then they can just get on with their life and feel pain relief and feel more functional, and they can read. One eye's not on one line, one eye's not on the other, where they say, "I have no idea what I'm reading." They're now on the same plane.
And why isn't this something that the general eye doctor that we go to for our eyeglasses can't detect?
What I learned early on about this work is that we can usually fix it, like, we can sort of compensate. So if I do a test and it's 15 minutes in length and then I'm done, I probably won't figure them out. So I do about 17 tests, and I've sort of created some of the tests and some of the tools to be able to pick out what's going on with these eyes and how can I identify the misalignment to begin with. I think it's because it's really a nuanced exam. It's 80 minutes. Most people see their patients in 20. And it's not just the length of time, it's what are we doing during that time. We watch people walk, we look at their tilt of their head, we have them provocatively bend down, come up. So we do a lot of things that try to trigger the symptoms so that we see that they're there. And then we do a trial framing of that final prescription, again, provoking them to see if we resolve the symptoms. It's a very symptom based exam.
I love that. And how soon do your patients start to see some relief?
Well, if I've helped them, and that's what the important part is, they're going to feel it the day of the visit. That's because they're wearing corrective lenses. And if I've gotten it just right, they're walking straighter, their head is more upright, and their nausea can go away, their headaches can dissipate. Um, and if you wouldn't mind sharing your story, Renee, you've got a great story about how you were helped with Prism. Maybe this is a good time to share what your symptoms were.
Listen, okay, so I was laying on my couch in excruciating neck pain one day, and I was listening to a podcast episode that a friend of mine coming out of New York had made with who I now know to be Dr. Cheryl. And I sat straight up because they started talking about this eye condition and how it had a connection to ADHD and how there was dizziness and headaches and nausea and vertigo and how you get motion sick. And I thought, this sounds really, really familiar. At the time, I was on, I keep calling it a cocktail, but it's not as exciting as a cocktail of medication. I was on tramadol and flexeril and soma and a compound pain cream to take care. It's like there was a permanent muscle knot right back here and constant headaches. I've had a headache since I was 8 or 9 years old, which ironically is also when I got my first pair of glasses. And it was probably maybe within a year of me being diagnosed with ADHD as well. So when I was listening to this, I'm like, this is worth looking into because not only was it, I want to be clear, I was on all of that medication. It was enough to keep me comfortable enough to go to work and come home and get back on the couch and lay down and try to stretch things out and try to get some relief from the pain. So after I heard this, I went online and started doing some research to see if there was a doctor in my area, and there was. Thank goodness for Dr. Kathy Collins. Hello, we love you. Um,
Mhm.
and so we went through the test, and she put that test set on me. And of course, she sat me out in the office and told me, just look out into the distance, give things a chance to adjust. And she brought me back in and she asked me about my symptoms. And my neck didn't hurt for the first time in probably 5 years. And I just sat there and cried because I thought I was going to wake up in pain and live through the day and just try to slug it out for the rest of my life, which is really no life at all when you're in permanent pain. It's you do your best, but your whole life is dictated by how you're going to feel that day. And if you're having a good day, and you're almost never having a good day when you most want to have a good day. So, events become unbearable. You don't want to commit to anything because you don't know how you're going to feel that day. So your world is just kind of ruled by, am I going to be in pain?
And you did get your glasses and you're wearing them now.
I am.
It's often asked of me, how will I transition to this next life? Because when you're used to being the one that's always feeling discomfort, now all of a sudden it's sort of gone. What would you say, Renee, was the transition like for you?
I'll tell you, it was like it took some time because again this is your way of living, so you're accustomed to saying, no, I don't think I can come. Okay, I'm going to go do this activity, but I've only got this amount of time because if I'm sitting upright for too long, everything starts to hurt. So you kind of you're you have to remember that you're not in pain anymore, so you can commit to more things. And then of course, as we know, friends and family start to treat you like you're being a little, like maybe you're a hypochondriac, like maybe you're overdoing it, or maybe you're playing something for their sympathy, which is funny because I mean, why would you bother? There's no good sympathy that comes from being in pain all the time. People are really just kind of impatient with you and mean to you and want you to come out and do the things that they're used to you doing. and you have to say no. So you kind of have to rebuild those bridges socially. And sometimes you'll get an apology because people genuinely, they don't understand and they don't know, and you can explain it to them, but sometimes they have to watch you walk it out in order for them to gain a real understanding of just how bad it was, which all of my people with ADHD will understand because it's really the same type of transition. It's like, oh well, if we knew you were suffering, we would have helped. And it's like, I told you I was suffering, but okay. If this is what we want to
Yeah.
go with, I believe you. You like, all is forgiven, let's move on. But it's very, it's an adjustment. What have your patients noticed as far as them transitioning back into life?
I would say that they're like you, approach avoidance. They're excited, but then they're reticent and they move forward and then they pull back. And I think eventually, what I encourage them to do is I said, I want you to make a list of all the things that you're now doing that you were not able to do before. And before you track the negatives, now I want you to track the positives because they're right there in front of you. And I think that helps them say, I'm not that person that was always struggling. I'm the person that's now able to do things and go to the grocery store and not feel overwhelmed, or go to the department store, or go walk to the mailbox. Sometimes they feel so unsteady. Just getting the mail and coming back might make them feel like they're going to fall. So they're always in that protective mode.
Now, that's an important symptom that I think people with ADHD especially will be able to relate to, that kind of overwhelm. Some of us absolutely hate going to the grocery store, and that symptom can kind of be relieved with these glasses. And that, I think the thing that makes some of this so fascinating is that these are also symptoms that you experience because of ADHD. So it's kind of like these symptoms are being piled on top of symptoms that you already have. So you
Yeah.
don't know what to do. You don't even think anything of it. You don't think this is a condition that can be relieved. You think, oh, well, this is part of the symptoms of my ADHD. And some of it, yes, but some of it, not so much.
So that brings up an interesting point. When we developed the questionnaire, it was this collaboration between Dr. Arthur Rosner, my brother in law, my husband, and myself. The three of us would get together and talk about the different things that the patients often say so that we could actually pull it together in a questionnaire. And one of the questions my brother in law, the ENT, ear, nose, and throat doctor, said is, you have to ask them if they're overwhelmed in big stores. And I
Yeah.
said, why? Why would I ask them that question? He said, because they often are. So, as an optometrist, thinking about vision and eyes and synchronization, is that if I'm in a store with a lot of products, it means I have to be able to synchronize my eyes to see all of them. If my eyes are not working well together, I will feel overwhelmed. I will feel like it's too much to look at. And usually my patients say they go in the morning before anybody gets there because now you have products and people. So they go when it's quiet in the morning or quiet at the end of the day, or they don't go to the big stores, they find little stores. And again, it's that overwhelming visual piece.
And therein lies another piece. Like, this is a real life thing. Like, this is not just affecting one portion of your life, it's affecting what stores you can go to. It's affecting what people you can socialize with it. Like, if it was a boyfriend, we would say it was controlling, and it does. It takes over your life completely. It's like, I know it I was diagnosed with vertical heterophoria in 2015, and I am still just as fascinated by it as I was when I first heard of it, because it just covers such a wide range of things that are uncomfortable, but we've normalized them because no one has a solution for us. I had gone to chiropractors, I was regularly in the ER receiving migraine cocktails. One time I got a medication I was allergic to and had a nasty reaction. There's so many things that have occurred that had I known, hey, go get some eyeglasses, it would have
Right.
made a huge difference in my life. It's just the ease of the solution versus the horror of having to live with all of these symptoms is just, it's, you would think with all of this you would need such an intense solution, and for it not to be is, it's just incredible. I can't get over it
And people will say to me, and I say to them as well, you may look fine, you just don't feel fine.
at
So
all.
they don't get you because you feel like a silent sufferer, you feel invisible, and you stop complaining because you do feel like a hypochondriac.
Yes,
I wanted to mention, as I see some questions coming through, that one of the biggest triggers for my patients for anxiety, besides the stores and the crowds of people, is the driving on a fast road. And I want to explain it is that if my eyes aren't in coordination with each other in synchrony, and I'm driving fast, the faster I go, the more I'm seeing images. We can think about trees lining the highways. We can think of the light poles or simply just other cars passing us. That can actually make my patients anxious. But what's also happening is they're dizzy. They don't really connect all those dots. They just know, I got to get off the road. And they pull off to the side and they feel like they're having a panic attack, and they're done with highways after that. They just take they know all the other roads, but don't make me go on the fast one. And very often when we can use the prism and synchronize the images, they can get back on that highway again and again start living their life.
what a great metaphor. Like literally and figuratively, they are getting back on the highway. They're able to transition back into whatever normal life looks like for them. It like I'm telling you, in fact, I need to get my prisms adjusted. I'm even excited when I have to get. Oh, speaking of which, okay, we said we were going to talk about what do you do afterwards? You get your glasses, you're driving off on the highway back into life. When do we need to? What do we need to do as far as maintenance checks? When should we be coming back in?
So I always see my patients and say to them, I want to see you in about a year. And usually they beat me to it. I may send them out a reminder, but usually they're the ones on the phone saying, it's time for me to come in, isn't it? Because my neck pain's starting to bother me. I had one patient, it's sort of a story to talk about the anxiety, which is huge in my patients. And she said to her husband, I think I need to see the psychiatrist. I'm getting anxious again. And he said, honey, you're tilting your head. You got to see Dr. Debbie. It's your eyes. So, what's so interesting is that anxiety just makes us feel out of body, uncomfortable. But in the end, if we can fill out the questionnaire, oh, yeah, I am nauseous again. I am headache again. Usually it's an annual visit, and my patients do think about the symptoms. Sometimes they forget them, but then
Yes,
they are reminded, I better fill it out and see how I score. And we'll call you back and say, yeah, your score's high. You need to come in.
it is so funny, and just like your patient, we were doing some talks when we were preparing to do this live, folks, and I was talking to Dr. Debbie, and I said, oh, well, I think I slept wrong. My neck's kind of starting to hurt. I think I'm just going to buy a different pillow. And Dr. Debbie caught me right away. She said, when's the last time you went and got your eyes checked? And I was like, oh, Dr. Collins did say it's about time. But then she hit me with a piece of information I have never heard, and I was so excited. I now, oh, look at this. Henri Andres said, I now have my life back.
With
And
Dr. Ito. Wonderful. She's in San Diego. Wonderful. Santa
incredible.
Monica. Yeah, San Diego. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much. I'm so glad that it was helpful to you.
Yeah, somebody
So,
just mentioned that night driving's easier for them, and that makes sense to me because when it's dark, there's a lot less to look at, right? Like that
yes,
store that's dimly lit is easier than the one that's got all the big fluorescents on them. So, yeah.
there we go. You just see better in the dark. That's what it's
Yeah.
all about. You have to be able to see.
So, how long did it take you, Renee, to transition back to your life, would you say? We talked about that earlier.
I would say a good 2, 3 months for me to get into a place where I felt like I was feeling better. And there was some social discomfort in the sense of at work, I had I had FMLA from, if you had a bad pain day, you're not going into work that day. And one day, and it was right before I got my glasses, I overheard one of my coworkers saying, "Oh, wow, it's unusual for Renee to show up on a Wednesday." And I was hurt, and she didn't know. The reason why I often took off on a Wednesday was because I had to fight my way through pain all Monday and Tuesday. And by Wednesday, I was done. So,
Yeah.
no, I wasn't there on Wednesdays, but it was the idea that this has become such a pattern, such a mainstay in my life that other people are starting to notice. I was
Mhm.
embarrassed.
Now, you mentioned something before that post came through about something you were surprised to learn about.
Oh, yes. I was
Feel free.
so excited. So, over the past year or so, I have been suffering with sound sensitivity. I feel like I've road tested 7 or 8 different kinds of earphones, trying to get some relief. And when I was talking with Dr. Debbie, she said to me, sometimes sound sensitivity can play into this too. And I almost dropped the phone. I was so shocked because it was like, how, first of all, Dr. Debbie is always finding out somebody's secrets. You start taking this questionnaire and you realize she's got a camera set up in your house. But this time she was on the phone with me and I was like, wow, how did she know? The ears. How is hearing sensitivity connected to all of this?
So, it's a great question because really my work began with the ENT, but then it transitioned to head injury patients. It was a doctor whose patient I helped after a motor vehicle accident that called me up and said, "Okay, I need to see you because you just helped my patient. And I think I have the same thing." Her specialty was head injury. I said, "Okay, here we go again. Now we're going to see this is a whole new population." And sure enough, they were very similar to the ENT patients, but they tipped over. They were right away not good. Instead of transitioning to negative symptoms, they just, after that accident, everything sort of fell apart. And this story goes that one of my brain injury patients came in who I'd seen for many years. She's wearing a set of headphones and she said, I said, "Oh, that's new for you. Tell me about those." She says, "Well, write them down. They're Bose, they're QC25s, and they're the only ones that work." I said, "Okay." And I'm thinking, only ones that work, huh? And so I thought to myself, well, that who's going to walk around with headphones all day long? I don't see that happening, but I'll write it down. And just later that year, the company Bose came out with a smaller version.
Yes.
I said, "That's the pair I'll buy." I bought them, put them in the corner, didn't know what I was going to do with them, but I thought I'm going to check them out. And this young man comes in with a ball cap on and sunglasses. I have a very quiet waiting room on purpose. I make sure it's quiet and calm. And he said, "You have the loudest waiting room." And I said, "Not really, but you know what? You might be my first." So I pull out my little earbuds, noise canceling. I said, "Danny, do you mind if we have you put these on?" He said, "Nope, not at all." So I put up little earbuds on him and he looked at me and he takes off his ball cap, takes off his sunglasses. He said, "What's happening?" I said, "You tell me. I'm going to write notes, but tell me." He said, "I'm not bothered by the lights as much and I feel a little bit better." I said, "Wow." I said, "Would you like to wear them for the eye exam?" He said, "Yeah." And so he wore them. We get out to the front. He needs a prism. He's walking better. He's feeling better. And he said, "I want to take him home." I said, "Oh boy. Okay, I'll let you take him home." And I did. And I said, "But one condition, we need to talk once a week. I need to find out what's going on." And while Danny was my first, he became my canary in the coal mine to explain to me, because I now got another pair and I used them with many of my head injury patients and discovered that it was just another piece of the puzzle. So while the prisms helped, they still felt like things were not quite stable and settled. And so if we think about hitting our head, yes, the eyes can be affected, but the ears can also be affected. And so I would say at least 50% of my brain injury patients, it can be a fall on black ice, a fall downstairs, a sports injury, a motor vehicle accident, any injury you can even think of. And it seems like it's not a big deal, but in the end, it can be a tipping point into these symptoms. So it's not meant to be for a lifetime. It's meant to be almost as a diagnostic tool that we need to look deeper into the inner ear structure and send you to the right specialist. But in the meantime, these are a godsend because they really quiet the brain, let us concentrate. And sometimes people only need them part time. And sometimes, if they can't live without them, we absolutely know we're going to have to get them to the right ear doctor after this. Ringing in the ears, what about tinnitus? That can be sometimes quieted, believe it or not, with glasses. It can sometimes be quieted with sound cancellation. And it's something we have to explore when you're there for the visit. So that's the sound story.
Wow. That was so immediately I ran out and got myself a pair of, and it's funny, I had been talking about how I was never going to buy a pair of AirPod Pros because they are so expensive. And why would I ever spend that much money on a pair of headphones, said I? Well, I'll tell you, when I hit that noise cancellation button, it felt like I was blown back because I was like, is this what not having all these sounds rushing at you all the time feels like?
Yeah.
What on earth? And again, just like in that eye exam, I started to feel that relaxation coming over me. It's almost like you're bracing for a fight in some kind of way. You're just here like this all the
Mhm.
time.
Yeah, I had a patient said, many patients will say, I have about 5 different devices I use during my exam. And if I've gotten the right device, and that's why we don't know exactly which one's going to work, so we try multiples. But when I put the right device on them, they usually feel like, oh, yeah, that feels better. And they feel calmer. I'm not so anxious. So I call it like a turtle in a shell. If sounds are too loud, we don't think we're doing this or know we're doing this, but we're actually hiking up our shoulders in a protective manner. So when you quiet the world, the body just starts to just let go and relax.
Absolutely true. It feels different. Oh, we got a comment coming in. Here we go. Pro earpods, using them on all my kids and grand. I don't blame you. I would use them too. It gets very noisy. And there's another thing that hits you with that social aspect. When sound is in when sound is causing you physical pain, you have to get away from the sound. And when it's your kids and your grandkids making the sound, it starts to look like I don't want to be around. I don't want to hear you. So
Renee,
again,
I'm having trouble hearing you.
can you hear me now?
Oh, so much better. Yeah.
Okay. Well, now we know it's the microphone. Better?
Yeah, so much better. Thanks.
Oh, great. Great. I'm so glad. But yeah, when you're not able to be around that much noise, you're missing your time with children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews, and those are the things that really make life worth living. You want to be around those people. You're missing moments that are really important and you're in pain. So you kind of just feel like a troll. You have to sneak off to your quiet cave. And nobody wants to do that. A lot of us are quite social people and we're missing out.
A question that sometimes is asked of me is, do I have to live in these glasses or can I wear them just sometime? And so the way I explain it is, if my feet aren't aligned with each other and I have one foot shorter than the other, I might wear a lift in my shoe. but I wouldn't take that lift on and off, on and off, on and off because I'd feel rocky, right? So, same thing with the eyes. If our eyes are not in alignment with each other and we need the prism glasses, we're going to need to wear them pretty much all the time. There are prism contacts, they do exist. They may not be as effective as the glasses, but maybe for special occasions, some patients can wear them. So that's nice to know there's a way out for that fancy gown you have to wear for a wedding. But for the most part, the gold standard is that perfect pair of glasses. And yes, they do need to be worn, but it's your medicine. I like to say, it's nice it's not a pharmaceutical agent. It's nice to know
Yeah.
it's just a pair of glasses.
Now, I thought this was a great comment. I'm so interested in the ear correlation. This all started for me with a severe ear infection, and I've never been the same since. Correct me if I'm wrong. Did you mention that that's one of the symptoms, having frequent ear infections as a child?
Yes, and I think the way I want to explain it is anytime the ear is disrupted, it could be a middle ear infection that, affects the actual eardrum. But the way I use this analogy is we have four wheels on a car. The front two might be my eyes, and the back two might be my ears. And all four have to be calm and in synchrony and coordinated. So we're working on the eyes, but we know there's an ear connection. I like to say in the olden days, there were EENTs, ears, eyes, nose, and throat doctors. So way back when they synchronized these two senses. But now the explanation is we need to see what's going on with the ears. So we pay close attention to that during the exam. And the important is the balance between the two sides. So if we've had an ear infection on one side, it's important that we have that properly evaluated to see how can this system be better balanced between the two ears. And again, there's special ear doctors who we often refer patients to for that kind of care.
It's so funny that all of this started with an ENT because when I was a child, I had to go frequently to the ENT because I always had an ear infection. So it's just the body systems work together so well, and when they're out of sync, the things that happen, like this is really fascinating stuff. You are changing lives. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm grateful. I mean, and I think it's a good time to say that when people were traveling from far and wide to my office in Michigan, I knew it wasn't sustainable. I knew that who couldn't come was really what bothered me, not who could. So, what are we going to do about all those people out there suffering? So, about 7 years ago, we decided to set up a training institute. And we now have trained 31 doctors around the country, one in Australia, but it's still a drop in the bucket. There are 30,000 optometrists out there. And so the important thing to me is to train more doctors so that this care is available in their hometown so they can get the care they need. And we're just determined to make sure we keep moving the knowledge forward. This is not yet being taught in school. We're hoping one day it will be. But in the meantime, my goal is to take those who are already out there wanting to make a difference to reach out and say, I want to learn this, teach me. And I'm more than happy to train colleagues.
The fact that you have been so innovative and cared so much about this subset of patients that you actually sat and developed tools and training and you're sharing them. You're a pioneer.
Well, Renee, you are too, and your willingness to reach out to people. And I think when you care about the human sufferer, you say to yourself, how could I not help this person? And as you know, some of these patients don't want to live. And it's mostly because it's not like they haven't tried, but they're just going from doctor to doctor. They're feeling so frustrated. So if somebody's out there and they say, is it me? I just saw somebody say they have MS. My goal is to say, you know what? We don't have to guess. If you fill out that questionnaire and it's now been validated in an ear journal, all about ears, but here it is in this ear journal about eyes and ears. So if you fill it out, we'll call you back. Someone will reach out to you. And the important thing is to know we'll know if your score is high. It's based on a score, it's pretty straightforward.
I believe you called me back. I don't remember whether it was you personally, but I know I took the test through your questionnaire and I got that call back. And it was such a strange mixture of relief, and it was like, oh, what is this going to be next? Now, what am I going to do? Here's another condition for me to manage. And I thought, because managing my mental health is a full time job. And I'm like, oh, gosh, I just can't do another thing. This is not another thing. This is, I get up in the morning and I put my glasses on. I've been a lifelong eyeglass wearer, so it's effortless. And that is another thing I'm very grateful for. We love Dr. Debbie for your hard work and research. I'm blessed to have Dr. Ito in Santa Monica that helps with the Prism glasses. Yes.
Wonderful. That makes me smile. I'll tell you, I never forget the day that a patient walked in and she said, "What if something happens to you?" I said, "Do you know something?" "I don't know. I mean, I feel okay." But I understood what she meant. What if there wasn't somebody to take care of her prism needs? So it was my greatest joy to train people to know that there would be somebody out there to help them. So it's great to hear that comment. In Canada, I see this comment. We are hoping to train doctors in Canada really soon. There's this whole population. Really, it's a human face, right? Where we're not symmetrical. So I think the important thing is to know that if you have two eyes, you may need help.
Perfect, perfect. We have another comment coming up. I took my mom to see Dr. Morioka in San Francisco after I was diagnosed, and she has vertical heterophoria as well and suffered from vertigo for decades. Thanks. Oh, man. Wow.
Yeah, I'm just. It's. Can you hear me? Okay, Renee.
Yes, I can. Can you hear
Okay,
me?
good. Yeah, I was having some funny things happen to my earbuds. Um, yeah, those are just great stories because you just know that there's more people out there helping us. We're not alone, and it's still the beginning of our work. But um, let me think about the discomfort coming back. So you said it's time for you to return. Are there any other questions that you're thinking about that we would probably need to make sure they understand about?
Absolutely. How are ADHD and vertical heterophoria, how are they connected?
Great question. So if you think about the imaging of one eye being here and one eye being here, and I'm exaggerating, it's much closer together. But we're reading images from different lines, or I'm on this line and I'm picking up a letter from the lower line, or a lot of times people say the letters move into each other and they're not still on the page. So those are all visual issues. We skip a
Yes.
line, we're reading for comprehension. We have no idea what we just read. We better read it again. And then we're so tired from reading. So I really believe it's a huge, huge puzzle piece to make sure. And, we think about what is the biggest challenge in some of the dyslexia or ADHD. It's reading, right? Reading is a really demanding task. And so if my eyes aren't on the same synchronized image, I will struggle. And, it's the child who's using their finger. What line am I on? I better follow it along with my finger. So I think that, and if I remember listening to a podcast about a gentleman who said he knew he had a problem when the teacher asked him to read out loud, and he was not going to do it. And he just,
Right.
wanted to put his head down. And if you think about how you can't even read to yourself, let alone read to the public, how uncomfortable would that be and intimidating? Many of my patients, before they come for Prism, say, I listen to audio broadcasts because that's just the only way. It's not like I don't want to learn. I'm hungry for knowledge, but I can't do it this way, so I'll do it another way. Um, so, yeah.
This is incredible. I do have another question. How's vertical heterophoria impacted by computer use?
So, as you know, during this pandemic, people have really, really had to be on screens a lot more than normal, even the children. So, here you and I are looking at a screen. Screens are demanding. They require us. It's like sitting in front of a book all day. If we can't do it here, how would we be able to do it there? And so I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that it's just constant. It's just, super intense. We've also got the issue of light. This is not a natural light coming through on our screen. This is a blue wavelength light. And we're working a lot with special tints now to protect people from that blue wavelength. And just adding that little bit of blue wavelength protection can also calm the vision down. So I think it's the intensity and the demand of a screen. And sometimes people have, oh, by the way, I have 3 screens. It's wow. Can you imagine? It's like having 3 books in front of you. I can't even do one. Why would I have 3 in front of me? And then you're having to scan across. And then I hear a lot about that rolling of words on a screen. And if you think about having a vertical misalignment, and then you're asking me to scroll, I'm going to get lost in the scrolling and I'm going to get really dizzy. So, yeah.
I don't think it's a coincidence that my symptoms at the time that I was diagnosed were so intense, because at the job that I worked at, I had a dual monitor. And I had been working with a dual monitor probably for the better part of 10 years. And that was when I first started to notice the pain intensifying. I would go home from work and I would just be exhausted, like I had been in a physical fight all day long.
Yeah. And I love how you talked about it. You had to go home and go on the couch, right? Because
Absolutely.
you have to recover for the next day. And so a lot of patients, when they start feeling better, they talk about, I have more stamina. I can do a half day. Now I can do a full day. And I just talked to a patient today, and she left her job in front of screens, and now she's going to work in a gym. But that won't work because it's too loud for her. She's going to still,
No.
she's waiting to see the ear doctor. But you can see that people are always navigating around a place that to get more comfort. Um, yeah.
And that's what it's really about, adding these little pieces that are going to bring big relief. And it's so intense. Now, what would you recommend if a person does suspect that they've got vertical heterophoria after they've listened to this?
My first suggestion is please fill out the questionnaire. And we made it really simple. And by the way, we get all the questionnaires around the country and the world. So we're like a clearinghouse. So if you fill it out, first of all, it's isitmyeyes.com. Just spell out isitmyeyes.com, and up will pop the questionnaire. And there are 25 questions. If you can't do it all at once, just sit and work through it till you finish all 25. And then you're going to be asked, what city are you from? Where are you located? And you're going to pick the office that's closest to you and then press send. And then we will have someone text you right away and then eventually call you to talk to you about your score. And if you score over 15, it's significant. And what does that really mean? The highest score is 75. But I will tell you, when people start scoring 30 and 40, they're really suffering. And if they start scoring 50, they're not working, they're not driving, they're just sitting at home thinking, what else can I do? So the starting point is the questionnaire. You'll get a call, and then you'll know who to see and how to prepare for that visit. I love when people come with a relative. It's powerful to be given relief, and it's emotional. And I love when people come with someone to support them emotionally. So please come with someone, have them be the driver if possible, and come with a partner or someone. And then that day you're going to know. That's my favorite thing to say. By the end of that visit, and Renee talked about this, she knew she was in the right office because she felt symptom reduction. I'll tell you a funny story. My brother-in-law used to say, don't get her glasses if she doesn't make you feel better. I said, you told him that? She said, absolutely. So he's held my feet to the fire from day one. it's all about symptom relief. And if you're not feeling it, maybe something else is going on.
That's the most important thing. Accuracy in diagnosing is something that we talk a lot about in the ADHD world too, because it just, I mean, if you're a diagnosis is not, we're not collecting them. They're not Pandora charms. We want the diagnosis because of the access that it gives us to care. We don't care what it's called as long as we're able to treat and relieve those symptoms. That's the most important thing.
And I see people on your the questioning here to the right where they're talking about Ehlers-Danlos,
Yeah,
dysautonomia, MS, and in the world of caring for patients, we're not simple beings. We're complicated, and we have more than one thing going on very commonly. So to me, I look at it as let's peel off some of these layers. We don't know if we can help you. Fill out that questionnaire, and if, during the visit, everything's going to be addressed because in the end, the person with MS has gait issues. Well, if these are needing to be synchronized more, we might feel more sure when we're using a cane or a walker for stability. If
that
we
makes
have dizziness from upright posture and we feel like we're going to faint, that might be POTS or dysautonomia. If there is a vision piece, let's get that layer off the table so we can have somebody help you with the other parts.
excellent. Excellent. And we've got another question. At what point do you know that you've settled into a new normal?
I think it's all about symptoms, right? What's your headache? What's your dizzy? What's your nausea? What's your
Yes,
imbalance with walking? Let's go through. And when you come back, by the way, it's not just one visit, it's usually two. The first is not the final because we come in with tight muscles and you get that relaxation, and then you need to come back for one more visit. At that second visit, when you're getting that second set of test lenses, if you say, you help me with everything, but boy, this is still a major issue, it's our job to pull out our referral drawer and to say, I need to send you to the next person because while the eyes are a piece of it, let's get to the next best person. I will say if people are on a lot of medications, sometimes it isn't just two visits because they may go through a weaning off of meds. And as they
yes,
go through that weaning with the help of their doctor, there may be that third visit and so on. But the goal is to have you feel what we're recording, that you're getting the relief you're looking for.
that makes a lot of sense. I'll tell you, I guess for me, I knew I settled into a new normal when I didn't, when I used to wake up, I would feel almost a sense of dread because I would wake up pretty much, not in an intense level of pain. And I knew as soon as I get up and start going about my day, it's going to begin. And waking up without that dread of knowing by the time I get back into this bed, I'm going to be in excruciating pain. I think that was when I knew I had a new normal, when I could wake up without a sense of foreboding, dread, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, that's a really great point because you do feel like, you're waiting for the other shoe to drop. It's that I call it anticipatory anxiety. Am I going to do okay on the highway this time? Am I going to do
Yes,
okay at that party where I didn't like to go before? So, I talk to my patients about slowly re-entering the world that they had left and just giving yourself a pat on the back for, yep, I did this, and put it on that list of things that you're now able to do. I think that's critical.
absolutely. Someone asked, would ADHD meds need to be weaned off to take these exams fully?
Not at all. Not at all. So I say, just begin the journey. And, the nicest thing that happens when people start feeling better is they'll go to their doctor and say, Doctor, I don't know if I need that medicine anymore. I don't think I need that one. And, I think my patients are super, super smart and they know what they need and they have a sense of it, but definitely talk to your doctor because weaning off of medications is a really important thing to do properly. and we just don't ever go cold turkey. So no, you can come for the exam, and then when it comes to that weaning schedule, consult with your doctor so everything's done really methodically and in the right way.
That makes sense to me. Bear with me just a moment. I do have another question. I think we already covered that one. We did. We talked about why regular optometrists aren't able to test, and the training just isn't there. What do you actively recruit new trainees to learn how to do it? Are you like, do you have you done anything with any kind of optometry schools? Are they reaching? I would be beating down your door if I ran an optometry school.
Yeah, I will say that it's been by word of mouth. And
Okay.
now, thanks to Matt, who you've met, I've
Yes.
had a tremendous amount of support because I just have so many minutes in my day. But we actually have a neurovisual medicine institute, and not embarrassed to say, I'm in fact proud to say, my son Matt Rosner is helping us really move this work out there. Many of my colleagues didn't know about it, didn't know this was a thing. And, what's beautiful about it is we only see about 7 people a day. My colleagues usually saw 20. And so I couldn't even say hello to people if I only saw them for 15 minutes. So it's a paradigm shift and it's an education. And I think the important thing is that we really take the time to make sure we are reaching out to groups of optometrists who are interested in innovative things. And, I'll shout it from the rooftops if they're listening. But I do want my colleagues to know there's more to our work. In fact, I had one doctor who came from another state who said, I don't even know if I can fit a contact lens anymore. You've spoiled me. This is way more interesting. So
Contact lenses. When I got diagnosed in 2015, we had no contact lens options. Can you talk about those?
sure. So they do exist and they do have prism in them. And we have some limitations, I will say, and that's our challenge. As you imagine, a contact lens fitting on the eye, it has a certain thickness to it, as do prism. Now, I could have prism in my glasses and you wouldn't even know that it's there. So it's not like prism you can see is thick, but when you start putting in a contact lens, you can sometimes feel the thickness on the plastic. So there is a limitation to how much prism they can put in, so it just depends. They're able to do the vertical prism, but if you need horizontal prism, they haven't yet figured that out. So right now, my suggestion is when you go for your neurovisual evaluation, inquire if your particular prism needs is correctable in contacts. I want everybody to stay hopeful that there might be more down the line, that as more companies get involved in this work, they'll see a way to figuring that piece out. It's an engineering challenge, but there are prism contacts.
I'm excited. Not that I mind glasses. Like I said, I've been a lifelong eyeglass wearer, so it's not really much of a challenge for me. But it's nice to know that there are some options out there. We have a good question. How can we connect our optometrists with this training, and where can we tell them to go?
That's beautiful, Genevieve. Thank you for that question. And that is um, so nvminstitute.org, and it is the website for optometrists. NVM stands for Neuro Visual Medicine Institute.org. And we have colleagues someone like Matt and others who will respond to the inquiry. I'll give my phone number at the end of this talk. I'm an open book, and if somebody wants to call me and reach out, I'm happy to communicate with them and give them information about the Institute. I'd love to train more. It's so necessary, U.S. and outside of the U.S., as we all know.
It's really needed outside of the US. There's, people read from the UK, well, now we got somebody in Australia. Um, but it breaks my heart to think like now and what can you do about it? Like, are you able, like, can you talk to somebody? Is it possible to train? Do they have to come to the institute to train? Is this something that a doctor would have some background on and could learn over the web, over Zoom?
That's a great question. And I would say that we just had somebody reach out from the Philippines and from
Wow.
Nigeria. And I would say that most of my colleagues overseas come to the US for training. They do come for knowledge, for education. So, what I say to them is come for 5 days. You
Yeah.
come to the US anyhow for training, come for 5 days. And in 5 days, you will learn what you need to know and you will go home with a suitcase filled with all the proper equipment and go back and do this the next Monday. So I just say, where there's a will, there's a way. And because we see so many patients, when they come, they watch me see one, do one. They see me do it, and then we throw them right in and they start doing it with my supervision directly.
Yes.
And in the end, by the end of the week, they begin to say, wow, I think I can do this. And that's the beauty of the work is it is translatable.
This is incredible. Okay, so here's the question. The thing that I love most about talking to Dr. Debbie is her enthusiasm and her passion for the work. What is your favorite part of your job?
Oh, thank you for asking. Um, I'll probably get emotional like you do. I would say my favorite part is changing a life. And we are grateful to do that within a visit. And when somebody comes in, I'll never forget I had a patient that couldn't even look me in the eyes because think about the eyes. I'm looking at you, you're looking at me. That's a pretty demanding task. So
Yes.
sometimes people can't even look you in the eyes, they have to look down. The whole time he looked down because he said, I apologize, but this feels better. By the time I got the prism on him, he was looking at me with the trowel frame on and he just said, oh, and the tears come. So believe me, we cry and you cry, right? We're just feeling like so grateful every day. I'm grateful for the work that I do. And I'm not jaded. I'm not spoiled by doing this so many 27 years. But in the end, the most important thing is that we have knowledge that we have to share, pass on, help people, and give them hope, and know that there's something for them. Yeah.
I love that this all started because you wanted to help your brother-in-law. What an incredible journey.
Well, thank you, Renee. I want you to just kudos for you because I told you earlier this morning that first we helped the ENT patients, then we helped the brain injury patients. And as I see the calls coming through for ADHD, it's like, wow, there's this whole population of people that are just sort of wandering and not knowing that there's help for them. So your work is incredible and how you reach out and how a little known condition that might have changed your life, you're not settled with that. You want to move it outside of your own space to help others. And in the end, that's what we're here for in our life is to help each other. And you do it every day. So I thank you for inviting me today and just giving me this opportunity to share.
My pleasure. It's so funny when I started talking about it, like I've shared this with Dr. Debbie a couple of times. I was like, oh, well, let me just, I have this eye condition. It's been a few years. I'm sure somebody would be interested. Let me just put it out there and see. And I thought, oh, well, a couple of people will go, wow, I can really identify with that. And we'll move along. And it is still one of the most read posts on Black Girl Lost Keys. People are getting their glasses at least 3, 4 times a week. Someone will reach out and say, I got my glasses. Thank you so much for talking about it. And I'm just astonished by how far the work has reached. There was a lady who sent me a message and she said, I sat down in the chair and the doctor said to me, you're here because of the Black Girl Lost Keys article, aren't you? And it was like a person I don't know in a state that I've never been to is getting their eyes checked because of something I wrote. It's just, it blows the mind to think of the effect that we all have on each other when we're able to be honest and share frankly. So again, your brother-in-law having a question about a prism changed my life, and you changed my life because you were willing to listen and help. Thank you. Thank you
Thank you.
so much.
Thank you. It's my pleasure, really my pleasure, and what a great experience to meet you and learn about the work you're doing. And I will say a cute story that I have a colleague in Minnesota, and he said, "Do you know about Black Girl Lost Keys?" I said, "Oh yes, I'm learning about it all the time." And yeah, I had a patient from that. So your reach is far and wide, and that's the beauty is just knowing that we don't have to live in pain. And by the way, we don't have to guess if you have it. It's really a data-driven questionnaire. It's very specific to results. So if somebody scores high, we just have to peel off that layer.
That's the wonderful thing. If anybody has questions, you guys can post those in the chat. I know you've been posting them the whole time. I've got a couple that I'm going to take before we get out of here. Let's see what we've got. I just saw it. Where'd it go? Oh, this is a great question. Is vertical heterophoria hereditary? I have prisms and so does my son. My other child has ADHD and has the symptoms that you've discussed.
Well, wow, what a great question. The answer is yes. It is hereditary in the sense that the beautiful human face, you can see that one eye might be higher than the other, or one eye might be turned out more than the other. And we're just born with our set of eyes, whatever they are in the human face. So can be very hereditary. And, my favorite story is the mom who comes and says, "Oh my gosh, I have to have my daughter come." And then the daughter comes and then she says, "My mom is 75 and she's falling all the time. She feels just so uncoordinated and clumsy." And so, yes, it could be generational. It can be the elderly. It can be the 40-year-old. It can be the 10-year-old. And it can be the child in college. Or maybe they were able to manage high school, but then the intensity of the demand of college work. So, yeah, it can run in families, and it's that eye misalignment. It's the power difference between the two eyes. So yeah, I think I just wonder about all these names that we're calling learning challenges, right? Let's just fill
Yeah.
out. You asked me, Renee, the other day, are there being studies? Are there studies being done on this and the connection? And I will keep pursuing it. I don't rest until we get answers. So I'll make sure that our goal is to find a school that's interested in this question.
Yeah.
And just if I just ran the questionnaire by 100 children, right? How many would score high? And especially if it's a special school for children with learning challenges, and the score is, let's say, 50% of them, we owe it to them to see, is there a vision piece to their puzzle?
Yeah. I love that. I love that. This is another great question. Thank you, Matt. Can we talk about dyslexia, ADHD, and children who complain of blur when reading?
So, the term ADHD, the term dyslexia, and the term, reading challenges, it's all sort of the same thing. We have these words on the page. We're supposed to read all the words, process the words, learn the message from the words. All of that can be challenging. And the blur images will go in and out of focus on us. We feel like it's almost like tromboning in and out. Then we have to look away, then we look back, then we have to look away. And, the child might get fidgety and they're calling it ADHD, but it's because they can't tend to the task. So I would say it's really important that we help people, sort it out. And I think they're all sort of connected in some way. Yeah.
I think that's important because what we don't want is children being misdiagnosed with ADHD when they don't have it. So I think, much like we all know the conversation around assessing trauma is important when you're talking about diagnosing someone with ADHD. I think too, I would like to see more information about neurovisual exams coming into play as well. Because even for a child like me who definitely did have ADHD, the disruption of having to continually leave class because of a headache, a nearly daily headache. My teacher used to tell me, "Okay, Renee, you've got a headache. Just try to massage first, and then, if it doesn't go away, then you go ahead and go to the nurse." And that was a daily experience. And like I said, I couldn't have been any more than 8 or 9 years old when that began. So it's
And I
important.
was it's a great point. When the children are visiting, the principal's room or the secretary, they go down to the office, it's when you've got frequent flyers there, there's something going on, right? And
Yes.
I often will say when patients get rid of their reading challenges, what I like to say is, that sticker you had on you that said those letters, that diagnosis, let's just peel it off. Let's throw that away. I want them to feel free to be who they are and not a label. I think that's so important for the kids.
I love it. I love it. Let's see. Do we have anything else? I don't want to take anybody, miss anybody's question. There's a lot of thank yous in here. Thank you all for watching. I'm really glad everybody came. Um, Gita says you do not have to have ADHD in order to have vertical heterophoria. They're not mutually exclusive.
And if someone does have autism, one of my colleagues is brilliant with young children, Dr. Mary Jo, and I would say she sees a fair number of autistic children. And so I would say to myself, if someone is struggling with that multitude, we talked about multifactorial conditions, different diagnoses, we all have beautiful eyes that need make sure they're coordinated. So even if it makes you calmer in a space, it's critical to, make sure that you get the evaluation. Start with the questionnaire. It's a piece of paper. It takes just 10 minutes to fill out. At the end of that, you'll know.
I love that. This is a great comment from Rachel. I was diagnosed with panic disorder at 10 years old, but it all stemmed from my vision.
That's
That's
powerful,
my
isn't it?
brain. Yes.
That's really powerful. Yeah. So, I'll never forget one of my first patients when I didn't know even what anxiety really was. One of my first patients, when I put on the Prism, and she leaned in towards me and she said, "Did you give me Valium?" I said, "No, I don't have any medicine here." I said, "Tell me what that means." And she said, "I feel so calm. I feel so relaxed in my body." And I just said, "Wow, this is powerful. I got to research anxiety." So I did. And I researched anxiety and it shows dizziness. And I said, "Dizziness?" And I thought, well, they think that anxiety is causing dizziness. I think it's the opposite. I think they're disoriented and they're feeling scared. They're going to fall down. They're getting a car accident. And so I think sometimes the brain goes right to fight or flight. I better get to safety. I'm going to get out of here. Wherever that panic attack is happening, something's overstimulated us. And we got to get to a place where we can feel calm. So, yes, those who have anxiety, we once did a study with a group at University of Michigan. It was in their anxiety disorder group. And I would say 40% of our population lit it up. They were going just for anxiety. So it is a symptom that we don't often talk about. People are quiet about it because they just feel like out of control. But let's peel that layer off.
I love that. Is there anything else you want folks viewing at home to know?
No, just know we're here for you. And hopefully there'll be more of us here for you. And thank you again, Renee, for all that you do to reach out and help people.
Thank you. It has been a real pleasure. Everyone keep commenting. We're going to monitor the comments so that we can get you some answers if you need some additional answers. I'll gladly knock on Dr. Debbie's door and ask her to lend a hand with questions I can't answer because this is the expert.
Yeah, I'll get several people to help us, Renee. Every question's an important one. I'll get people to help us
Absolutely.
answer them.
Thank you so much. I really,
Thank
really
you.
appreciate your time and your dedication and for your patience.
Thank you. I'm here for everybody. But thanks so much and just have a wonderful day.
You too. Chat soon. Take care.
Okay. Bye bye.